G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Space Tomato. I've got to do it on a diagonal. That's weird.
Yep.
Space Tomato and Algared. How are you gents doing today?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Ready to talk about chips.
Oh, well, it's the reason why I grabbed the two of you for this one. Is we're going to be talking about what is a whale, or like when do you become a whale? And I know your opinion on it, Space, is you are very much just get the basics. And Algared, well, we all know Algared, he just went the whole hog. So I thought, and I'm somewhere in the middle, and I thought that was a really cool weighted opinion. So that's what we're going to go through today and kind of discuss. So I don't know if we should even really talk about the merits of is it worth becoming a whale? But maybe that's a place we could start if you guys want to think that's a good place to start. Like obviously from a funding the game perspective, it's great for the game to have extra funds for it to work on. But if you would look at it from the other side of it, you don't need to go that. And I think that's kind of one of the best parts
Well,
of this game. You can kind of put in what you need, what you want to put in.
I think in terms of what are the advantages of being a whale really comes down to what is a whale.
Mm-hmm.
So once you determine what makes someone a whale, then it's okay, well, what are the advantages of doing that? And the biggest advantage of any backer, whether you're just a basic starter pack or whether you go for whole hog and get bigger packs, is that you're funding the game. And, Chris has often said, don't buy more ships, just get more people to buy the game.
Yeah.
So
he said that quite a few times, actually. Yeah. So yeah. I know.
It definitely changes between game to game.
Yep.
Right? Like a whale in a I don't know, a game like Star Citizen is going to be different from somebody who's considered a whale in
yeah.
I don't know, any other number of games where you spend a bunch of money.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's more choice driven, especially in Star Citizen. You kind of, a lot of people are like, well, you're buying the ships, you're getting the benefit and the perks of the ships. But really, at the end of the day, it is a funding to get the game built. And it tends to be, from my perspective anyway, it's more of a passion thing. Like you want to see the game succeed.
I mean, I think that's true for a lot of people, but there are plenty of people who just have problems with spending money. And no offense, folks, but that's what happens, and that's what CIG preys on, and that's how people end up spending a lot of money in this game.
Yeah. I would agree with that too. It's both. It's not just one. It's not set in stone. Yeah.
It's hard because we often do blame CIG and say CIG preys on that. But if you look at every sale they do, every sale they have, yes, they put in the LTI and the new ships and they play to that FOMO aspect that we've all developed, which the back is actually pushed and turned into a thing.
Yep.
But every sale will have, you do not need to have, this is not a game. You do not need to have this. This is just an optional extra. So it's not. It's not then saying, "Oh, you must have this." It's.
I think that also,
unless you want space superiority or the ability to respawn in certain places.
Yeah, that's true. You do get certain perks of having the ships now, and there are other perks in the future. I was just going to say though, but I also think since kind of the start where Sandy was the marketing is very different to how the marketing is now, because they've brought in traditional marketing people, and so with that they've brought in their traditional practices, which I think we would all agree are a lot more predatory than the passion where it started. And if I could ever go back to that, that's where I'd go back to, where it was passion driven. And Space, unfortunately, you came along after that time.
I was following around that time.
Oh, okay.
I remember when Chris and Sandy were hosting around the Verse, and there was a lot more of the company was smaller. I mean, even when I wasn't following it, I've gone back and looked at that time, and CIG has gone incredibly corporate since then.
Agreed.
They focus a lot on making money and less on making the community feel like it's an actual community, and that's what they do. That's where they are now.
Would you not to put words in your mouth, Space, but just before we go on, Algared, would you say that you could see that you as a because I don't feel as valued now as I did back then? That's what I'm essentially asking. Could you have seen that as a time, if you'd been around a lot more back then, that you would have been more valued than you are now? Like, I just feel like a cog in the wheel now, where back then I felt like I could say things and I felt like I was heard. Now Spectrum's just so big, and there are so many people. I feel like it's almost impossible to get a message out.
I don't know. I think my perspective is probably skewed because I make videos now, and it's a little easier to get your word out there when you're making videos. But I do feel like
I'm talking about like when I go on Spectrum or something like that. Yeah, obviously I can do a video and I can do the same thing, right? So we have a better voice than most people. Let's just be honest. But I'm talking about if I try to go through normal means, it's very hard to be heard.
So, yeah. I usually avoided Spectrum, but yeah, like when I was on Reddit, back in the day when I was first on there, it was like the same 100 people. Maybe like not same 100 people, but you would see the same names all the time. You'd have conversations with the people. Now you go in there and you have people who maybe have been there for 6 years, somebody who's been there for 2 weeks, and everybody is kind of in the pot together. And I think because CIG does not keep up on communicating with a lot of the stuff they said back then, it gets really confused and misconstrued.
Yeah, pre-2017 Reddit was amazing. Yeah, sorry, Algared, go ahead.
It's not that having the younger people or in your backers is bad, but I think it's twofold. One is that there's so many more backers, and so it's less. Like I used to like the old forums, and you go into the old forums before Spectrum, and you'd meet the same people, and you talk to the same people, and you'd get relationships with those people, even though it was just chat. You'd have that discussion with people, and you'd pull them aside. You could almost pull them aside and just private IMs and discuss aspects. And I'm sure you can do that now still, but there's just so many more. It's just hard to do that. The other aspect that I was pondering is I do know that when Sandy was doing the customer service aspect and the marketing, she really pushed to make sure that customer service was
a priority,
like like it is in any other industry. And that was a breath of fresh air. That was totally unique for what they were doing.
What games do, games you're out of sight, out of mind type of thing. Yeah.
Because the idea was that, she was saying that customer service is crap, and they were saying, but that's where it's always been. And she said, no, it's rubbish. We need to treat our we need to take care of our customers and our backers, and so she really pushed to get that done. And I know marketing, the attitude to marketing was a lot different. There were times, I'd ordered a T-shirt, didn't get the right T-shirt, they'd sent the wrong one, and I said, oh look, I got this T-shirt. I was after this one. They said, oh, we made an error. Just keep it. That's okay.
I have a fun anecdote.
Give you a refund, and we'll do this. But it's all those types of things But I wonder whether the change happened, or part of the change happened when they brought in the other family group, the Caldecott family group.
Go ahead, Space. You were going to say?
I just have a fun anecdote about the way that they've changed. I made a video earlier this year. It's for supporters still right now. It'll come out publicly at some point.
Yeah.
And it goes to a graph. I might actually be able to send you guys this picture. It goes to a graph of
do you want me to bring it up
basically
on screen? If you check it to me, I'll try and bring it up on screen if you really want to show it.
I'll see if I've got it here. It goes back to a graph that was made by somebody who wasn't a huge fan of Star Citizen at the time, but had some ideas about where it was going. And this was, I think, 2015 it was made. And if you look at it, it has a lot of stuff that's kind of dumb. It shows that the release of Mass Effect Andromeda and Starfield will lead to the game failing, and from there it will just bottom out and they'll fail. But at the same time, this video is about the fact that it kept consistently succeeding after that. But at the same time, the infographic also says things like, they're going to start, doing flash sales on recent ships in order to try and drum up extra sales, or they're going to bring ships that they said weren't for sale back up for sale, and do these kinds of things. And it's like all of this stuff is kind of
coming to pass,
happening. Yeah. And it's a little embarrassing for them, I think, because it's just I guess it's almost embarrassing for me because I made this video, and then right as I'm making this video, they started to do that stuff. Made this video right around the time when they did the whole, oh, you might have missed these ships last year. you should go and try and pick them up now kind of sale. It was a couple weeks after that, and it's just like, you know, I know you guys need to make your money, but it's a very very conscious and obvious change.
You don't think that that extra money is for marketing purposes for Squadron? Because I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure that extra money is going to something they need.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But that's the case with every other company. You know, a lot of companies, maybe they'll toss the money to their shareholders or their CEO or whatever. But a lot of times these companies are doing stuff to make money, to make ends meet, to make new products, to release and market and all that stuff. And I'm sure CIG is using this money for stuff they need. Doesn't change the fact of how it feels, though.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree with it either. It leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. Especially when they break things like, we will never sell the F8, we will never sell the Lightning, stuff like that. You know, so I just realized I named the same ship twice. But you get my point.
Yeah.
The F7A, well, there's another one. They said they weren't going to sell that one, and they have, and so yeah, you get my point.
So I just sent that over to you if you want to look at it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, I'll try and bring that up.
But yeah, it is one of those.
This is going to break the cameras because I did not set up for this, so just live with it for a little bit. I'll try and bring space back on, and then I'm going to move Algared.
Creeping behind Al.
Yeah, there he is. And I've got all my other browser windows open. So yeah, tell us what we're looking at here. Space.
So it's like that. It shows, you know, again, this was around 2015, so the references might be a little bit off. Like, I think the funniest part is the whole Mass Effect Andromeda, because that was such a long time ago. But if you read that central description there, you'll see it says psychological fracking techniques. It doesn't need to be that dramatic. Flash sales, reintroduction of formerly one-time only products, stuff like that. It's happening.
I have not heard that guy's name in a aeon. Beer for the Beer God.
This is old.
Beer for the Beer God. Man, I used to talk to him all the time. Wow, I haven't talked to him in years. So he is he's one of the people from Eve that came over from Eve. He's a part of the, what were they called?
Goon Squad.
Yeah, Goon Squad. He was like one of their head guys for Star Citizen from Goon Squad. And I used to talk to him a lot because he had all these thoughts on where the game was going. But yeah, they kind of dropped out, I think, because they got sick of waiting. So yeah, that's just, wow, I haven't heard that name in a long time. But yeah, it is interesting to see. I like the expectations from Chris and Sandy that just go straight to the moon.
I think their expectations are still like that. You know, I think.
Yeah.
When you look at the gala and the fact that they had that planned and then they've canned it for this year, I think that showing this is where we expect to be, this is what we hope to do, this is why we're going to do it, and they've now gone, we're not doing that because it's not going to be ready, or we're not going to be ready.
Yeah.
So
Road to 4.0.
Yeah, I can see the thoughts that the person has had, but obviously this has not come to pass. But yeah, but like you said, some of the things are coming to pass from it, so it is interesting. Yeah, we need to see how things change. We've got really off topic, I've realized, but anyway, that it wouldn't be Inforunners if we didn't. All right, so one of the things I wrote down was when you were talking about was Concierge, because I think Concierge is almost like a recognition of a whale status in my book. I think that's probably where CIG think Concierge whales start. What are you guys thoughts on that? Do you think whales start before that, or would you say agree with CIG that Concierge is the level of status? And not only that, we now see them expanding out the Concierge, so they're talking about having different levels, like literally based on how much you've spent will have different perk levels. That they want to expand out that system. And again, almost rightly to what you were talking about earlier, Space, is this is to encourage people to spend more.
Yeah, I think the concierge thing, the whole recognition of how much money you've spent is it's weird, because you would think most of the time that would be like remind people, oh wait, maybe I should slow down a bit. But I think there is some level of recognition that comes from it to a certain extent. Like, I don't think everybody is getting to that status and being like, yeah, I did it. But there's definitely people will post pictures of the certificate coming in. Hey, you spent 5,000. Hey, you spent 10,000. And I'm like, I prefer you don't remind me.
Yeah. Well,
but that's always been my approach as well. I don't want to be reminded how much I've spent or whatever.
Yeah.
I've spent it, but I don't want to know.
Well, when it gets to that amount, you're kind of like, shouldn't you feel slightly embarrassed that you've spent that amount? I think the other part though is too, I think almost the longer you've been here, I don't want to justify this. I don't want to use the word justified, but it is a little bit like that. If you say, look at a game like World of Warcraft, where you spend what, $20 a month, you extrapolate that out over now more than a 10-year period. I'm not saying, I am kind of saying it's not as bad as it looks, is what I'm trying to say. I can justify
I just sent you over a poll I took a couple weeks ago, just asking people, and specifically like from 2012 to 2024, how much money you spent, because I think there is something to be said about like somebody who has spent $400 in 1 month versus somebody who spent that over 10 years. If you spent that over 10 years, does that really make you a whale?
No.
It could, but like, is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
No, it's probably a good thing. Yeah, my view of what makes a whale is, in a sense, is once you've got a starter pack, if you go the 3-person or 4-person ship, once you go up to a connie and you've got you still got your starter ship, that in a sense that makes you a whale. You've got way beyond what you need to play the game. But and you can do that over a 10-year period, but then you've also got the level of where Concierge starts, and I think that's where CIG went. Okay, that's a significant. And I think when they introduced that was way back in 2014, 2015. They had that's where the support, Chelsea and Alexa were basically got to look after these people because they've spent so much. It was kind of looking at, wow, people are spending this much on the game. We've got to make sure we look after them. So it's picking up Sandy's on you, making sure we care for our customers.
I do find it interesting, kind of realistically, like I'm surprised how equal those are. Those 4 demographics you've put there. That
actually goes up until $2,000.
Yeah, but still, it's again, I think it kind of talks to the whole thing. Like it creeps up on you, a little bit here, a little bit there, a skin there, whatever. How many people do you see? And Algared and I see these people, right? Where me and Algared will see someone that have come in and they've spent $10,000 in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And we do see those people, and we do help them fix their monumental mistake and get more for their money. But they are pretty rare, right? They'd be in a 5% type of thing, Algared.
Yeah.
You don't tend to see someone come in and spend a huge amount of money like that. And I think that's talking to the people you were talking about before that kind of have a spending issue, or they've got a lot of expendable income. Most people come in $45 and then just creep up.
Yeah. And I think that, and you can creep up and become a whale in that sense, because you've just got so many, over 10 years, you can do that. I know what I spent quite a lot in the first year or two, but a lot of that was also, I used to buy more in terms of supporting the game because it wasn't that, they'd have that, they're scamming us, they're going broke, they're going to, not say, screw you, I'm going to back them a bit harder, but mainly because I believed in the project, and I still believe in the project.
Ultimately,
go ahead.
People think that CIG gets more money for releasing ships, and in my experience, I think that they get more money when they make the game better.
Yep,
like they can release all the ship concepts they want, but if you look back at the funding years that do well, it's generally when the game is doing a lot better. They're making big progress. They've added persistence. Maybe they've done something at like the whole Elite Dangerous thing, definitely. But
like last CitizenCon, shitloads of people, shitloads of sales. And I even think, just let's look at what's coming up. We've got that cargo hauling stuff coming in. I think they'll get a bunch of people coming back just for that. Yeah.
And you'll see new people, and I think you get more people come in on the free flies, so they'll get a lot of people, new accounts, more people will make new accounts, people will come back and try their old accounts. And if I like what they see, they buy a starter pack, or they buy a ship that suits what they're trying to do. or what they want to do, and that's well and good.
One of the things I'm kind of hearing from just listening to you both talk there, and also looking at Space Tomo's little graph there, is I don't think it is a dollar amount that makes a whale. What I'm understanding from listening to that is it's a speed problem. So if it's the rate, because if you think about it, we've just kind of addressed it. Like there's people like me, Algared, and yourself that have essentially been here for a long amount of time, and we've spent over the concierge level based on the fact that we've just put a little bit in, a little bit here, a little bit there. But then we've also said there's those people that have come in and they've spent 10 grand in 2 weeks. They're the real whales. They're the ones that have come in and spent what we've spent in 10 years, they've spent in 2 weeks, type of thing.
I do want to clarify.
Yeah.
I've only gotten over concierge level because we bought ships for giveaways.
Look, don't give me excuses, whale. Yeah.
Well,
you've seen the ships I have. I do not have that many ships outside of referrals.
I will go the other way because I did become a whale. I did become a very large backer before my first year was out. So the completionist pack was changed to digital at the end of the beginning of 2015.
Yeah.
So Christmas 2014, they were making the change, and I was consolidating what I'd bought to get a completionist pack by the end of the year. So that was within the 6-7 months. I was at that point. So yeah, I put a lot in, but I was also putting a lot in because I was back in, I was back in the game. I thought I was putting my money where my mouth was, because I believed what they were saying, and I saw what they were doing, and I knew, okay, yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but they're going to do this. It's just one of those things. I look back at what Chris did with Wing Commander and Privateer, and I knew he was going to push the envelope.
I've got to ask Space. Now, Space, you have a javelin, do you not?
Yeah.
I don't have a javelin. He's got 3. So
I saw somebody in the comments.
Yeah.
I saw somebody in the comments on one of I think like maybe the last time I was on here Aegis Week, somebody was like, Space Tomato says don't buy ships but owns a Javelin, Idris, and Kraken, and I'm like, I don't own any of those ships, and I got a Javelin from Referrals.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's why
the biggest ship I own is an MSR, and that was a gift. Yeah. So I'm not like when I say get the ships that you need, I'm trying to practice as I tell. I'm not telling people to not get ships because I think like it's like you don't want to regret that.
Yeah,
you don't know what these ships are going to be like or how this game's going to show up.
Do you know where you are roughly on this list for the Morph is obviously at the top. He's got what's that? That's like
I'm nowhere near that. I'm nowhere near that. That's crazy.
It's crazy. Like I can't remember exactly how much is it for a javelin. I think it's like
2,400 and something.
So he's got like 8 javelins.
2042, I think.
I don't believe you get.
They don't stack.
Bracket. They don't.
No,
stack.
But maybe they just. You know what they should do? The top guy gets a gold-plated javelin or something like that. They should just give him a skin. The morph skin or something like that. Yeah, but anyway. Yeah.
I think they're trying to ease their way away from the program. Like it's set on there for like 8 years that they're going to add new stuff on there. I don't think they want to. I think at one point when you're doing a referral program, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. Referral program, sharing the message. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But at some point the referral program starts to be like, all right, you're basically paying people to recruit, and that's it's a thing you need.
That speaks to it, right? Because a lot of the people that watch me and Algared as an example are much older veteran backers, and in the entire time I've been doing this, I think I'm up to like 21 I'm up to now. 21 referrals, right? Where someone like Morph that has that bigger, newer audience and board gamer that cater to that more, well, even yourself, you cater to a more casual crowd than me and Algared, and so therefore you've got more new people flowing through that pick up your code. We don't have that because we're more tailored at a different audience. But again,
I don't even post my code. Yeah. We post our supporters codes. Yeah. Because we reached a javelin. Okay.
Well, we went through and we made it so every Inforunner had a Gladius, right? And after that happened, I thought, I'll just put my code in there. And I think in the last 2 years that we've been doing that, I've gone from 14 to 21, right? Yeah. like I don't ever reckon I'll get to the next ship, which I think we need to get to 75 and I get a razor or something like that. But again, it's not why we do this, but it's just showing you the different audiences do push a different referral program. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on what I said there though about the speed? Right, so it's the speed in that you put your money in, because I think that is a big factor on what makes someone a whale. Because again, if you look at it on essentially a graph of time, you could essentially just put in $5 every month and you would hit that concierge level. So I don't think concierge essentially makes you a whale anymore. Right, I think back when they brought the program in, $1,000 was a fairly high bar. Now it seems fairly low on the track of a 10-year time period. I don't think they were expecting that, to the point that I think them now bringing in those new tier levels almost speaks to that, as if they're going, oh, we need to up the game again now because it's taken so long that there are now different tier levels of of concierge.
Well, I think that was exactly what the problem was. But when they brought it in, $1,000 was a lot to have spent on the game. But these days, if you've been here 10 years and you've bought 3 ships, chances are you're at $1,000.
Yeah.
Chances are you've got a fighter, you've got a mining, and you've got a mole, and you've got something bigger.
Yeah.
You look at it, you've got a hull C, you've probably got $1,000 spent.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take much these days to be pushed over that limit.
Yeah.
But back in the day,
that's why
2014, 2015, that was big.
Space, you're going to say?
That's why it's like the question itself is inconsequential, I think, because it's a time thing. Paying a $20 subscription for 5 years will get you more money in than somebody who came in and bought a single ship last week. And both those people will be called whales just because of the amount of money they spent. Like when it comes to just your natural conversation on the internet, most of the people who have backed Star Citizen for more than a few years, I can't say that, I don't know that. A lot of the people who have backed the game for more than a few years would be called a whale. And that could be just from buying 1 or 2 ships, $250 in. People would call that a whale. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've never spent that much money on another game.
Again, if we were looking on another game though, so let's take another, like a free-to-play game. So let's look at, say, League of Legends, right? Again, if you're spending that $20 a month, I know people that have been following that game since it came out in 2009. They easily would have spent over $5,000. You've only got to do the math based on $20 a month. And $20 a month is a pretty standard amount to spend on a game a month. Well, on your hobby, so to speak, per month. And I know you've spoken that in the past, Algared. You said you stopped doing a lot of miniature stuff, and you essentially take that money from miniatures and you put it back into Star Citizen per month.
Yeah.
Back when we used to buy gift cards, you and I, at $20 a month.
Yeah. And you look at other video games. So Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic,
LOTOR,
or
War any MMO,
or War Thunder, or even World of Warships or World of Tanks, or any of those games. It didn't take much to decide, oh, I'll pay for that because I'm, or you play a free-to-play game and you say, oh yeah, I'll back this because I'm playing it, I'm enjoying it, and so, but it doesn't take much to spend money on a game. I think Star Citizen is just over time just builds up, and then you've got the thing where we were able to melt the small things we'd bought and then invest, get something bigger. But so it's very easy to get to those levels of what people often say is a whale. But I think at the end of the day, I think anyone who spends more than the base pack is ultimately pushing that barrow of being a whale. But as you said, it's that speed of acquisition. If you put in a heap and you just keep putting it in, and you're a constant money cow, then you're a whale.
Well, I'd kind of put it in a way to you. I think we've all seen those videos. Like I think just recently there was a video by Pirated Software where he was looking at the $48,000 package and just absolutely baffled that people would buy this. But again, if you had more money to spend, you can now see why multiple people have reached that amount, because it's over. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that I can now see why people have hit that. If you've got enough expendable income that you could have put in $2,000 a year type of thing or more, you can see now why people would get to that, because it's on you. The time factor is the thing that not people are accounting for. They're just thinking someone's calling in and going, "Oh, I've bought a car's worth video game." It doesn't work like that. It's a slippery slope where when you're invested in something, you spend time in it. And I think that's the one thing if I take away anything from this conversation today, is that a Star Citizen whale, or where the Concierge level is where they officially recognize, I think, what a whale is. As time has gone on, even CIG are looking at it, because they're obviously putting in different levels. So for me, a real whale is the speed that you get over those lines. And I think all of us here would deeply be encouraging people not to go over that first Concierge level, say, for example, in your first 2 weeks. I would not be encouraging that. I think all of us would sit here and say, buy your starter pack, play the game, get your feet wet, and then see where you want to go. And I think the other part of that we'd all agree on, especially Space, I know you run your own org in the garden and stuff like that. Crew is a serious big thing in this game, right? I look at Algared, and I often say this to him, Algared, you've got 3 javelins. You don't have 83 friends, let alone 3 times 83 friends. How the hell are you going to crew all those, right? So he's going to be running to Space and going, Space, I need 83 of your best tomatoes, to fill out my tomatoes are red shirts, Algared. I don't know if you realize that. Yeah. I need some red shirts, Space.
I've always
gotta have the red shirts.
I've always taken the view the red shirts in terms of the disposables are the NPC crew, not the plates.
There's some merch for you, Space. The tomato red shirts. You need a shirt. I'm officially a tomato red shirt. Something like that.
Well,
there's instead of the Star Citizen, instead of the the
Star Trek, you need a tomato garden. Yeah,
a little tomato pin. That's
there's a pretty big conversation to have about that regarding whales and whether how much CIG wants to reward somebody for the money they put in. We talk about recognition with the Centurion or the Concierge thing, the milestones you meet and stuff. And it's like, okay, so you get out of game recognition, maybe you get a bunch of referrals, maybe you get PTU access, whatever it is. But then when it comes to the in-game rewards, there's a uncertain amount of kickback that people are not sure how far it's going to go when it comes to how much money you spent in this game. If you buy a bunch of ships, if you go the Al method, when you get 3 javelins, is CIG going to make you feel good for putting that money in by giving you the tools necessary to run that ship as anybody else would if they got a crew together? And there's a lot of debate about how effective is NPC crew going to be. Absolutely. What about AI blades? If they're not, is that people getting ripped off for spending money? If they are, is that balancing the game so that you're not getting that pay to win aspect as much? And that's big.
All valid concerns, and me and Algared do address a lot of those questions. Algared, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
And tossed up on that is the idea that CIG are also pushing people or wanting to encourage people to do multiplayer gameplay. So you've got that balance between multiplayer gameplay plus and there's even a whole pile of people who don't have big ships that say, I don't want to play multiplayer, I just want to play solo. What's the biggest ship that I can take out by myself because I don't want to do multiplayer?
But I want to be in the biggest ship, so it's the most powerful single player ship.
But I think it's even what I don't want to just do prospector mining because I've got to keep going backwards and forwards. I want to be able to go out and do bigger mining. So what's the biggest mining ship I can use, or what's the biggest this ship I can use?
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, Algared. There's no perfect ship though.
No, but it's the same problem that I will have with manning some of my bigger ships. It's the same problem people who want to do solo play have, and I think there's going to be that balance between solo play, group play, and we've got to be aware. Everyone has to be aware that the best you play, or the best experience you'll get out of Star Citizen is multiplayer gameplay. It's gaming out with your friends and playing. And I think one of the bigger aspects of that often was talked about in the past was that idea of agent smithing. So you've got NPC crew, and then your friend's on the other side of the verse. He could kind of agent smith into one of the NPCs and play with you for a while and help you out.
Yeah.
I know CIG want to encourage you to be able to play with your friends, and I think that was the way they were talking about you could do that. But I don't think they know how they're going to do that. But
they've talked about it. So they've talked about player finding system. So you can say I am looking for a crew member, essentially like in World of Warcraft. In World of Warcraft where you have like a raid finder space. You know what I'm talking about in WoW in that term.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like almost like a crew finder. I think they'd call it something that they haven't named it, but I'm naming it. So you can put out that, I'm in a javelin, I'm doing this mission, I need these crew members, and it tries to find people. And if you can't find them, then you can obviously then hire AI to fill in the gaps. Then on AI itself, we did an episode with Morph that bore a lot of fruit when he came on here, and we went through like how it would work, and we kind of realized that you can fake a lot of that stuff. You don't, like realistically, if you look at what an AI has to do, it has to be able to fire a turret, fly a ship, and then when it comes up to doing an actual individual task, it can fake it by using the same player rating system that I mentioned before. And you would have heard me say this before, that you work out an average of what, say, a 3-star rated player is. You can kind of copy that onto an AI based on averages, and then it just does it with a timer. And it just has an animation playing of it doing whatever that is. But it's not really doing it, and it just auto completes. So I think go ahead.
But then again, you're going back to that idea of, are you going to reward the whales? Are you going to give them all the ability to just tank with the ship, even though you've been focusing on this idea that the ships take all this upkeep? And
so you're essentially saying that because they've got more money at the beginning, you can't get up because they've got a more powerful ship because of AI. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't like the idea of looking at it from a zero-sum game. I think that's the right term for that. Like, I don't think that there should be if that person has more money than me, then my game is less, right? Okay. They should be creating enough content that the person who is doing a javelin mission isn't impacting somebody who's doing a saber raven mission. But at the same time, the person who's doing a redeem.
So the last part I'll add into that is skill. Right? This has always been a skill-driven game. They've always said since the beginning, you can come in on day one and be better than a person that's been playing for 4 years because you are just naturally better at it than them. So there is a skill factor. So, for example, I'm better at first-person shooters than Algared, but Algared's got better tactics than me. So what Algared can do is Algared might get some people that are good at first-person shooters, and he essentially leads them. And that is the better of both worlds. That's the thing that I'm learning about this game very quickly, is everyone is going to have what they're good at. And if they play to those strengths and you start, again, that whole multi-crew thing, it's like an older person has experience, but they start to lose their faculties. I don't know how else to say that nicely, right? We can't click heads as much as we used to, right? Because we're getting older. But if we take our experience and you pass that on to a younger guy and you give him the strategies that he doesn't have because he doesn't have the experience, you see it in the military, in the real world military as well, right? So I think that's what's going to happen, is it's going to emulate the real world, where you're going to start to see the people that really succeed are going to be the people that work together. So I think people working together will be way stronger than an AI will ever be, to the point that you see it in other games where humans work together, they find the weaknesses in the AI and go straight through the cracks. And I think it'll be no different in this game.
But I think there's another aspect as well, and that is the missions.
Oh, true.
If I've got my javelin, and I'm going out with my javelin, whether it's a fully crewed javelin or javelin with most NPC and blades or whatever, and I do not think any person will be ever able to solo run a javelin with just AI and NPC.
Yeah, it's just too difficult.
But even if they could, the missions that you can get for a javelin are going to be totally different from the missions you get from a saber, and they should not intersect. And if they do intersect, that's a problem for the game, not a problem with people.
Yeah.
And that's really where their responsibility comes in.
Yeah, that's where CIG's responsibility comes in.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an issue of whale versus others. I think it's an issue of the gameplay mechanics and stuff. Now,
but
if there's a mission that has you in your saber, it may have my javelin there to assist you or do something alongside you, but it should not and should never be a situation of, because my javelin turns up, whether it's got 80 crew or 20 crew or 1 crew, it screws up your gameplay.
I think
and if it does, the game's broken.
I think very obviously you've got to add in low, medium, and high security space into that one as well. So you can essentially, that player choice, that if you want a safer environment, you stay in high security space. You're going to.
But then, with that comes back to the economy, right? Is the mission that you're taking for that javelin enough to pay for the upkeep of that javelin? Are they balancing the javelin so that it takes that amount of money to upkeep it? You know, like, I shouldn't be able to go out and say, hey, I want to run an Arlington Idris mission with my Polaris, because the game should look at that and be like, hey, you're running a Polaris. You're not going to get paid enough for that mission to replace your torpedoes and pay your crew and get the components repaired. And like, if the economy isn't up to snuff to force people to use the ship they need to for a certain encounter, then you might start seeing people take ships that are unnecessarily big or powerful for missions that other people should be struggling to do with their smaller ships.
I think it'll be a bit dynamic though as well, because you take the different areas of the game into effect. There will be areas where you will lose money because you're running in an area that is flooded with those mission types. But if you're doing it in another area, you'd gain even more. So I think it gets even more nuanced than that. Algared?
I think that when you're looking at a mission for a javelin, if you take the missions that are designed for a javelin, you will make money. But if you can, but just like you can take a mission that's, you know, we're doing an MMO and you go and fight the mobs, and you go fight the red mob or the purple mob. You know you're going. You should die if you're taking it by yourself, because it's so overpowered. You can't even scratch it. But if you take a grey mob, you earn nothing. I think it's going to be the same. If you take a grey mob with a javelin, and you do that mission in your javelin, you're not going to make money. It's going to be like, it's just
essentially encouraging you to stay out of the way of beginning players and players under you. I totally agree.
The missions will be tailored to the type of ship or the size of the ship that you're taking, and I think
100% agree.
That's what'll do it. And
they even kind of really hinted at that when they had that guy on, and I forgot the acronym he was using, but he was talking about the different levels of reward, risk versus reward.
EVR.
Yeah, EVR. That's it. Thank you very much. So in that, you can totally see that they're already thinking of it.
Yeah, that's, you know, this isn't a conversation about whether or not the game is or is not designed correctly. It's more a conversation in my mind about looking at where they're going to go with it. And like the way that we're talking about it, it can work. But can they reach that? Can they do that? And then at the end of the day, they're still allowing people to buy a UEC. So if you have a millionaire coming into this game, billionaire, let's say, freaking Bezos is coming in here, getting all the ships he wants, and then he's operating those ships at a loss, going and taking beginner level missions with his javelin, you just pay to buy a UEC and not have to worry about making enough money to upkeep.
Except back in the day, Chris talked about having a cap on the amount of UEC
you could buy, and I think it still is. You can only buy 20,000 a month or something like that. Yet there are people that have continued to buy 20,000 a month since for 10 years, and they're now got shitloads.
Expecting 10 years of
you know, that was one of the things that Chris wanted to do. He wanted to balance the ability of someone who is time poor to be able to keep up with people who are time rich. And so, because he wants everyone to be able to enjoy the game, and that, you know, and that was the balance. And I know there were people who were saying at the time, that's pay to win. No, it's pay to play or pay to enjoy. But it shouldn't, if they get it right, it shouldn't impact on a beginner player who's just doing the beginner missions. It should just enable them to do the missions that you're doing on your ship. And if you're doing the missions that are suited for your ship, then it should be fun. But if you're just doing, you know, from doing an MMO, if you're doing the grey missions, it's boring as batshit.
Yeah.
Because there's no challenge. It's just clubbing seals. It's like going to a start area and killing all the newbies. Where's the challenge in that?
Again,
some people love doing that.
But again, we have the reputation system, so those people will get a bad rep for killing the wrong people, and there'll be consequences to their actions. So I think there is enough in place there for me. to think that it's not as pay to win as people think. And I think coming back to also what you said about in game versus out of game, realistically, you can't tell how much someone's spent in game other than the ships they have. And I think on a sliding scale over time, that'll all be blurred. Once other people are actually earning javelins in game, it'll, at that point where you're getting those end game ships, you won't be able to tell who's a whale anymore in game. It'll literally be a completely on spectrum, outside the game thing.
You can already buy the 890 jumping game. So
yeah,
when you see someone for an 890 jump, how do you know that it's a 890 jump they've bought in game or out of game? I think possibly the only thing is the name. If it's a name chip, oh yeah, that's been purchased out of game.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure.
And that'll change over time too, won't it? When you can eventually name in games. So my point still stands, right? Like at the end of the day, all those perks on a scale of time will disappear.
I think that's what it comes down to as well. Is this is a question, the whale conversation, pay to win conversation, even the UEC conversation we just had. It all comes back to the fact that this game's taken so long.
Yep.
It's like these are problems that are coming up because this is a game that's been in development, been playable, and people have seen as an actual playable game for longer than almost any other game that's been in this state.
Yep, I'd agree with you on that.
Another aspect that really picks up that longevity of development is the recent F7A Mark II.
Yep.
And they're no longer supporting or no longer selling the Mark I. Now I'm opposed to that idea. I hate the idea that they've discontinued the Mark I and reselling the Mark II, but it's the same type of argument, isn't it?
Just a sec. How about we ask Space? Because we actually asked him his opinion on that, and I'd like to get that because I know yours and you know mine. But let's get Space's on that. What's your thoughts on that, Space? That essentially that they have a Mark I, a ship that never really actually kind of got into the final product, that's essentially been completely replaced, and they've upped the price of it by $50.
I think it's a bit embarrassing that it ended up having this happen before the game even reached a 1.0 kind of state.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's not like a lot of people are now saying like, oh, they're going to have a Constellation Mark I and a Saber Mark I. And
it's made a lot of people worried.
But you can go back 8 years to where they talked about this specific ship, the Hornet, that's always been referred to as a Mark I, and that it was going to be superseded by another ship. I mean, I pulled up a video and posted it on Twitter of them talking about this in like 2017. And that's not to say that they don't or can't change things. But I think like there was something very specific about this ship, maybe because it was a squadron ship, maybe because they just wanted to do it this way. And I think there's both a terrible way they can go about this or a good way they can go about it if they do continue to do this with other ships, and that is to make sure that they're still available in game. That's the most important part, in my opinion. All of them should still be available in the game.
Yeah, I think they will be, but it'll be behind a rep wall. It'll be like, for collectors and stuff like that. Go out and rep grind, and you can get an older antique version of the Hornet type of thing.
Yeah. The raising of the price on the Mark II over the Mark I don't know. It depends on if the Mark I has been going up in price over the years or not. If it hasn't, then
it essentially went
a couple excuses, but
it went from over the time period from when it was first announced to when it before it was shuttered the door. It went from $110 to $125 in that time period.
So
it went up $15. Yeah, it went up $15 essentially. And then they brought out the Mark II, and it went from $125 to $175.
Oh, okay, I see. So that's on top of the price increases for the other one.
So instead of just going, oh, you've supported us and you brought the Mark I, we'll give you a free upgrade to the Mark II because we've superseded your ship. Give me $50 if you want the new one.
Yeah, it's the whole complete this event, and then you have the ability to buy the ship.
No. That free event was to take it from the cargo variant of the Mark II to the F7A. That's completely different. There was no free upgrade from the Mark I to the Mark II. That was $50 regardless.
But you had to do something, right, to get the ability to spend that money?
No. You just had to go and spend $50 in game, and that would take you from the F7C Mark 1 to the F7C Mark 2, and then the free upgrade that you got in game was from the F7C to the F7A, both Mark 2s. And that
See, it's just too much. It's too
yeah, it is confusing. And that upgrade, because you can't buy it, you can do what I did. I turned around and sold my F7A Mark II for $450 of credit because I didn't want the ship. I didn't need it. But there was people that wanted it so badly because they hadn't done the event. They were prepared. That's an ironclad for something that I got for essentially like a bunch of credit and and doing a bunch of in-game missions. But that just shows you how badly people wanted that ship. But they never sold it. Now, if they turn around and sold the F7A instead of making a free event, that's a whole bunch of money they passed on. Again, it shows that they don't understand their own audience. Because again, I turned around and sold it for $450. There were people selling it for cash for $350. I wanted credit instead, so I got more. Right? Because I was going to put it back into the game anyway. So, but you get my point still stands though, right? They didn't see the rarity of this, and they tried to give it away as like a gift, but they passed on a shit ton of money. Because again, people were spending $330 to get the F8, because they made this rarer, people were spending more than they spent on the F8 to get it because they didn't have time. Because you had to spend, I think it was a minimum of 6 hours to get in that 1 month period and do those missions at very particular times. And a lot of them you had to do with other people because you had to be in a group. It just shows you how time poor people are. It really does. If you don't have a month to put in 6 hours,
yeah,
I think you start to see that people are going to pay their way through this game.
And I think that's probably the biggest problem that Star Citizen is going to have in the long run is that the time poor people.
Yep.
And I think Chris has always known that people will be time poor, which is why you had thinking of the idea of agent smithing, where you get poured into someone's NPC, or why you have the ability to buy UEC in the store. It's all catered to help the cash, the time poor, as opposed to not necessarily the cash poor, but the young uni student who can spend, or the young adolescent who can spend 24 hours a day or 10 hours a day or whatever it is in the game.
We're seeing moves towards that as well. They are essentially changing the way bed logging works, because that makes you've got to go, not only do you have to go back to somewhere to log out, you also have to then travel back to another place afterwards. So they're trying to remove those restrictions because they're finally realizing most people just don't have the time. Space, you stream this a lot more, you play it a lot more than us, right? Now, I think you would say very accurately, every time I go to do something, it's an utter minimum of 1 hour. Utter minimum of 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
And we already look at people that play League of Legends, they struggle to do a 40-minute game of League of Legends. That puts that puts Star Citizen at that vein of where most adults that work just don't have time to play this game. If you've got to invest an hour just to get started, and then what you're going to play for 2 hours after that, that rules so many people out. They have to lower that bar of entry if they want to make it a more casual game. Because I think most people, they're not ever going to go outside Arena Commander if that's the way it's going to go.
Which, should be an option. Like, people should be able to get all the gameplay they want in Arena Commander.
Well, that's why I think when Algared brings up agent smithing, I think so many people are just going to be doing that. I'm at home. Algared gets home from work. He's basically just going to go, I can't be stuffed at spending 2 hours. I'll just go join Execute, and I'll jump on his ship, and we'll do some whatever Execute happens to be doing at the time.
I've got an hour to kill.
Yeah.
You want to do that mission? We can. I'll agent smith over.
Yeah. Because
you're starting to talk about.
The only criteria then is you've got to have NPCs on your ship.
Yeah.
So you need NPCs. I 100% think you'll need NPCs, and I think this is me just putting my own thought in here. But I think the way they'll go with agent smithing is it'll be you use character slots on your account and create, and they'll be the character slots on your account will become your NPCs that you can agent smith into.
You
I
know
think
what
that's how they balance it.
You know what I just thought of though, and it's just in the way we were talking. Then, what if beds are the way you can transfer between places? So if I go to sleep in one location, I can wake up in another location.
I think that would be how they do agent smithing.
Yeah. That would work on so many levels if you think about it, because you're taking away the bed logging ability, but if it becomes a transportation tool, right? So you can't take all your gear with you, but if I can go to sleep in my bed on my ship and then wake up on your ship and start using your shit on your ship, that works on a lot of levels to me. Because then I'd have to go to sleep and then go back to my own game.
I could see that being how they do the agent smithing, where your NPC goes to sleep, and when you come in, the NPC kind of wakes up, and you're the NPC, or you take over the NPC and take its place.
Just a thought.
But yeah, I'm not sure how you'd work it with if it was just transportation, because that kind of changes it. But then there's what's the movie where they'd go into the capsule and they'd go to sleep. Your main body's in the capsule, but your
oh, there's so many aliens where you get face
your
hugged,
simulclone,
cocoon.
But where you'd go into the capsule, you go to sleep, and then a replica of you would be.
Dark Matter. You're talking about the TV show Dark Matter. Yeah.
And the replica of you would spawn in the other place, and then if you went back and you didn't die, then when you came back, you'd have the memories of what went on. But if so they could look at that. They could look at that as being an avenue to go.
Yeah, and they start to build into character skills and things that aren't necessarily based on player skills. So now you have different aspects of the game design that, they may need to change them in order to make the game make more sense, but they could start clashing with other things they've planned.
I know they talked about NPCs having skills. So you get NPCs that could be, you could have them as a good engineer or a good.
But you also run into problems in Algared where if you're used to your character and you switch over to another character, especially in unknown NPCs, you're not going to know what your skills are.
No, I think the idea of agent smithing was always you would replace the NPC. It wouldn't be you would be the NPC. You'd replace them.
But also, agent smithing has been one of the most up in the air things they've ever done. So I think if anything's going to change, it would be how that is done.
Yeah,
and they have also talked about player skills. Even just at last CitizenCon, they talked about how it would change your assassination, and that everybody, every time I bring it up, people say, "Well, that's it's very soft skills, very bare things." Look at the way they're changing the game.
Yeah,
they're making the game more accessible. They're making the game make more sense. They're doing things to make it, like you said, easier for people who don't have a lot of time, because every single video you look at, people will be commenting saying, I don't want this to be a second job. I don't want to take this time. I don't want to take that time. I don't want to spend that time doing that.
Well, how do
they start adding in skills to people?
It's less.
Then you can say, oh, I'm going to switch to my other character because that character can do better FPS.
Well, I look back
then it's not a player skill thing.
I look back to PAX where when I talked with Chris, he talked a lot about Battlefield because of how it wrote, so you essentially made it fun, and it was a tie between realism. Like you can see realistic elements in, and this is Battlefield 2, so we're going back a fair way, right? You look at Battlefield 2, it was fairly realistic, but then they took all this stuff back to the fun, and it's we've even heard Jared parrot similar lines to that, where you make it as realistic as possible, and then you take it back to where it's actually fun. It's exactly the same thing. If you're trying to mass market this to as many people as possible, you take out a lot of the serious elements, and we've even seen that in just a very simple thing like how the characters lean in this game. There's no real there is a lean key, but they were talking about like how it naturally hugs the cover and stuff. They've tried to automate a lot of that stuff, so it again simplifies things and makes it more accessible for more people across the board. And you see that in everything they've ever done, like how another example is the med tool. You can automatically do it, or you can go in and do all the little complicated things. So it speaks to both people. You hit more audiences because you can hit the advanced audience, or you can hit the audience that just doesn't give a damn. Right, and I think that's essentially, I'm parroting what you were saying space. They're essentially making it more appealing for more people. And I think if you also then start to layer on things like missions and gameplay and different types of gameplay, I always think of that line that you always say, where there has to be things in this game that I'm going to hate. Right? I always remember when you said that because it makes sense. And there's that other famous line: "A game for everyone is a game for no one." But how do you make a game for everyone that is for everyone? And that's because you put things in it that people hate. You got to go the other way. You got to go past past that perfect point and literally. Do you get what I'm trying to say, or am
But
I
if they're
just
not,
babbling?
yeah, but if they're
Yeah.
not getting in front of the communication, like look at the response to 324 that's not even out of NDA testing yet. Like the amount of just declaring that the game is going to die because of a change that's been planned for that long without trying it out. They're getting a lot of pushback, and the more they let that pushback just continue to build on itself without clearly communicating these things in the game to people, they can do all the ISC and SCLs they want, but people who are actually playing the game might not see that stuff. And the more they let that kind of stuff grow and grow, eventually they might have to just say, okay, you know what, our player base in a large part doesn't agree with this, and we need to pare things back.
Well, it's also why they don't talk.
The vocal minority is going to,
They
sure,
also,
but the vocal minority can do a lot.
Not 100%, but a lot of this stuff they don't talk about because it's in flux. Like, so giving it a really simple example, I heard other content creators complaining about the SCU problem, where you have a single 32 SU container was taking exactly the same time to load as 32 separate SCU containers. And I said that is clearly obvious because they haven't put the numbers in. And then you literally check the patch notes today when we're on stream, and they changed it because it was obvious it was going to happen.
But like, how the heck is that happening right now for a feature that was supposed to be in 323 in May?
Because again, they build it in stages, right? And when you're doing testing, you put in the numbers last. You make sure everything's working, and then you go back and make it more complicated by putting the numbers in.
That means that it must not have been edge cases, though, like we were told, right? Edge cases that were holding back the freight elevators and the stuff like that.
There's definitely edge cases because I've been playing it myself. There are
I'm sure there are edge cases, but these are some pretty substantial details and quite a long time to get them figured out past May, which was 2 months ago now.
Yeah, again, I did say this on stream, but I'll repeat it for you here. The person that works on the numbers is completely separate to the person that actually works on the feature because they are two different teams. So often the person
need to talk more.
Yeah. Well, I think that's across the board. They clearly don't have enough staff to get the messages out from inside CIG. And one of the things is because of the blowback they get, a lot of the people, well, look at what happens with Jake and stuff, for an example, right? He comes out and says something that people disagree with, and he gets all this blowback. But that makes him not want to talk more because he just gets blowback, and he's just telling facts. He's not, he's not like spewing hate. He's just saying it what it is, and then he'll get all this blowback. And I think the blowback is two-part. Maybe it's the way he worded it can be bad sometimes, right? So that's negative for him. But the other part is some people just don't understand, right? And again, I think half of it is because they do a lot of stuff in a text-based medium. And well, you and I know, even on our Discords, we've had problems with text because people shorthand everything in text because they just want to get it out as quickly as possible, and it's a slow, bloody medium. I think they have to take time to actually articulate what they're saying. But I also know that he has to go and get everything he writes approved. And sometimes he has to get approved multiple times, and so he just gets sick of typing it. All right, so I can understand where that goes. If you've got
Jake's on the receiving end of the mismanagement or whatever you might want to call it. They are doing the roadmap, and at the end of like 5-6 years of having the roadmap, they end up being the one that gets a lot of the crap that has built up over that time.
Yeah, but again, with a lot of the time in terms of the time they give, that is best guess. This is, and I said this on the stream as well. It's looking at the department leads, go, okay, how long do you think it's going to take? Right, okay, this is how long we think it's going to take. But then you don't know what unforeseen problem is going to arise. Now, to pick up Execute's thing with the person doing the actual feature and the person doing the numbers, because it's been running, and they've been able to, I think they're able to see how long it's taking to load single 42 SU, 32 single SU containers versus or SCU containers versus the single one. They can actually now adjust those time factors, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still those feature problems that are where you've got bugs and other stuff. So they can do both in comparison, but it still takes time, and sometimes the time to get the feature in takes longer because some unforeseen problem that you didn't expect to come up.
They also don't talk about everything, so they might just be talking about this part, but the same person that's working on this might be working on 10 other things. We don't have all the moving pieces. So yeah, look, I'll start to wrap this up then.
Because we've gone way off track.
Yeah. But where's your kind of final stance on a whale then? What do you? I'll put it to you first, Space. What do you think makes you a whale then at the end of the day on the question that we should have been talking about, but we haven't for the last 15 minutes?
This is all a conversation going back to how whales fit into the dynamic of the game and how the game changes based on not just the time that's been put into this game and the time it's taken to make, but how much money people have put into it and what they expect in return for that. And I think ultimately, a lot of people would be considered whales in this game, and it's shut up. It's a product of perspective. Like people who are playing this game who have spent $1,000, who look at their friends who have spent $15,000, probably don't think they're a whale. Maybe they do, but it's different than if you go and you play like Assassin's Creed, and that's not even a good example. Like another game that has skins, and you look at somebody who spent like $200 on skins, you'd be like, holy crap, you are a whale. That's half a ship in this game.
League of Legends recently made a shit ton of millions selling a $500 skin, believe it or not. So there's another type of thing we can get into. That's for one skin, and Algared's cringing at that one, so that's bad. But
it's also kind of like, what are you getting for that money? Because I think a lot of people, if you were had a game that was going for a long time, let's take a game that people love, like Baldur's Gate 3, and say that game had a 5-year life cycle after it came out, and every year they released a new $80 DLC. At the end of that 5 years, you're putting in another I can't math. 8 times 5.
It's got to be your time. You're essentially talking about
$400, right? Yeah. $400 more. Would you call somebody a whale because they spent $400 on DLCs where they got tons of good content out of it, compared to somebody who maybe spent $400 on a couple of ships?
I think you're essentially describing the outside perspective versus the inside perspective, because people see that we've spent $5,000, but they're not taking the 10-year account into that time frame where.
A lot of those people haven't gotten what they paid that money for. Exactly. Neither have they gotten the ship because it's still a JPEG, or they've gotten that ship and it doesn't even do what it's supposed to. So
that's true.
Again, it goes back to like, what are you actually getting for that money?
So, Algared, your thoughts as we wrap up?
Yeah, well, I was saying just like the F7C Mark 1s or some of the variants of the F7Cs. But I think it does come down to, I think there are two versions of whale. There's the time rich, who can just pour hours and hours and hours and hours and hours into the game, and then there's the cash rich who can put it. And I think normally we think of a whale being the cash rich.
Agreed.
But if you're able to make money hand over fist by being in game 24/7, you're a whale, because time is the most valuable aspect.
I think that is a very important takeaway at the end of the day. If you look at this on a time scale, everyone will eventually be able to get that whale perspective if you've got the time. And I think that's always been a benefit of this game, actually, that if you don't have time, you can put money in. But if you have time and not money, you can put that in. So it does cater to both groups, which is kind of unique in a way, because I'm going to be honest, the whales usually get the shorter stick in. So let's take a regular free-to-play game. They're essentially paying for everyone to play. So this game, again, if you look at it, the game wouldn't be here without the whales. It wouldn't have got to where it is today. And I know, if you take all the ships out of it and the pay-to-win element and just look at the dollars, they needed that to get where they are. Now, problems aside and all that, it wouldn't be where it is today without dollars. I think we can kind of agree on that. It's a boon to have both options.
I'll agree. Go ahead.
I can remember looking at those who'd done completionist or Wing Commander packs back in 2014, and based on the idea that were about 100 people, those 100 people who had those packs back around 2014 accounted for like 5% of all funding.
Yeah.
Those same people now, of the people who have those packs these days, probably only account for 1% or 2%.
Yeah.
But back in the day, back when it was starting, those people, those whales, really were fundamental to the development of the game.
Well, that's why
and the survival of the game.
That's why they call it Kickstarter, Algared, because they kickstarted it all. Yeah. Space, you're going to say?
Yeah, I don't remember. I was going to say, yes, the people who have spent a lot of money have made it possible to get here, but also spending a lot of money has given CIG more freedom to expand the game. And if they didn't get that huge influx of cash between 2012 and 2015, there might be a finished game. Maybe it's not what we are getting now, which would be disappointing because what we're getting now is something really, really cool, but it would have been a game.
Yeah, we might be on episode 2 by now. Yeah. No, I agree on that. We will never know because history has been changed. So,
but if we look at things that Chris had said in the past, I think we would have had a game, and we like ideas when People to Planet came out. This is where I thought we'd be in 5 years' time.
Yeah. But whenever the game does drop, we should probably do an episode looking back on what it could have been. Because I think we'll all agree whatever we're going to end up with is not what we would have started with, and if hopium, total utter positivity, if we get to what everything is that has been promised eventually, however long it takes, I think we would agree if it does get to that expectation or that ultimate dream level, it will be unlike anything we've ever seen. Do I think we'll 100% get there? No. But I do think we'll get more than halfway there, and it's taking longer than any of us wanted to.
Yep.
So all right then. Space, where can people find you on the interweb?
I'm on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Discord. Just search Space Tomato and you'll find me.
Yeah, Algared, where can people find you on the interweb?
On this small channel, Talking Head channel, we talk about ships and other stuff. I think it's called Inforunners.
I thought it was called Eggs Are Us, but okay, yeah, sure, no worries.
Yeah. Uwu Girls is, I think, what you're wanting to say, but yeah.
Yeah, Uwu Girls Are Us, yeah. Eggs and Uwu. Yeah, there we go. Gonna write itself. All right, then. He's been Space Tomato. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute.
I knew you were going to do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Knew it.
And we're out of here. Take care.
All right. See you, citizens.